Welcome to Keep Going, a podcast about failure and success, hosted by John Biggs. Every week, we talk to an amazing person about a time they failed and what they learned. And remember, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Welcome back to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. I'm John Biggs. Today, I'm talking to Spenser Skates. He's a CEO of Amplitude Analytics. Amplitude, they basically do product analytics, experimentation, recommendations, all that other good stuff. I would like to hear from you what you guys do specifically. Welcome, Spenser.
John, great to be on here. Very, very excited. Huge fan of your podcast. What we do at Amplitude is we help companies build great products through data. So part of that means a bunch of the different capabilities that you just talked about: analytics, experimentation, session replay, guides and surveys. And the idea is we have this superpower today as product builders, which is we can actually see how people are using the product. So where they're clicking, where they get stuck, what they engage with, what keeps them coming back, but we're not really leveraging it. So Amplitude is all about helping other companies do that. Today, we are about 300 million in annual recurring revenue, 700 people. We're a public company, work with some of the largest companies out there. Companies like Walmart, NBC, Ford, DoorDash, Intuit, Atlassian. And we started the business 13 years ago, and it's been quite the whirlwind since.
Yeah, that's the question. So you've been doing this for 13 years. I'm sure there have been some ups and downs during that period, right?
Yeah, I'll just probably every 3 years since starting the business, there's been a period that just frankly sucks, and there's a large emotional part of you that just wants to quit. So I'm happy to talk. I guess we've gone through that like 4 different times now.
Okay, yeah,
it's so very happy to talk about that. But that is part of it. It's just like literally, okay, do you make the decision to keep going on it, or do you make the decision to leave it? And one of the really powerful things that happens if you make the decision to keep going is that you'll continue to compound whatever success that you have. I remember the first time that hit me was in 2013 when we were raising the seed round for Amplitude, and we didn't really have any product or customers or anything to speak of, and nobody wanted to invest in us. People thought, we were pitching ourselves in mobile analytics at the time. People thought it's like, all right, there's a whole bunch of companies there already. You guys are too late to the game. We're focused elsewhere, and we didn't even have that compelling. I didn't know how to pitch, and I didn't have that compelling of a pitch. And I've spent about 9 months trying to raise about $1 million, putting it together $50,000 at a time. And so every few weeks, someone new would come in for $50K more, and you'd be like, all right, well, now we've raised, 200,000, but we still have 800,000 to go to get to that $1 million. And we did all sorts of, tricks on that to make it seem like we had momentum. Like we counted a bunch of money that YC gave us through Start Fund. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, oh, we're already 150K on the way there. But like nobody wanted to give us money at all. It was brutal. And that was the first time. And luckily, we ended up seeing it through, and, it's grown into the success that it is today. But yeah, it's very, very strong pull. The other thing I'll say, I'll kind of give you 2 other stats, which are super interesting that I saw as part of starting Amplitude. One was during Y Combinator, about 1/3 of companies actually had major co-founder issues at the time, which was a huge shock to me. It's like, you just made it, you just had someone legitimate put a stamp of approval on your company, and you're fighting as co-founders. Like, what are you doing? Like, it makes no sense. But it's crazy. Like, conflicts between co-founders like kill the vast majority of early stage companies. And I didn't fully appreciate that until we had gone through the program. And then the other funny stat, which was also mind-blowing to me, is even among successful SaaS companies, about 7-10 years in, most of the founders leave the business, even when they're successful, which was just a shocker to me. And so, I remember seeing a lot of our peers at the time, companies like PagerDuty or Mixpanel or Optimizely, all very, very successful products, all very successful businesses, had done a bunch of impressive, hit road bumps here and there, but large successes in their own right. And the founders ended up leaving after about a decade. And so I was like, wow, like, okay, the drop-off funnel is just so strong, no matter what. So even if you make it, you're not safe. So.
Yeah. So that sounds actually kind of rough. So what do you think you did to head that off, really?
There are a few different things. So before even starting Amplitude, one of the things I did, I wish there was a podcast like yours when we had started out, but one of the things I did was we just studied lots of startups and successes as well as failures. And we read this book, Founders at Work by Jessica Livingston's great stories of interviews about the early stages of 30 different startups. And one of the key themes that really stuck out was that almost universally, you kind of, no matter the company, there was a point where rationally you probably should have quit what you were doing, maybe a year and a half, 2 years in. And so, but for whatever reason, those entrepreneurs didn't, and they kept seeing it through, and that ended up turning into success. And so the lesson to us was really clear. It's like, okay, if you can just exist and not quit for at least 2 years, you'll probably find something successful. Maybe you'll end up going to get acquired. Maybe you'll end up raising more money. Maybe you'll end up having a product that has traction, but you'll find, just by virtue of sticking at it and giving yourself enough shots, you'll end up getting to something successful. So that was a very clear lesson for myself and my co-founder, Curtis. And so we had said, all right, no matter what, we're gonna give this 2 years, And so when it came time to shut down Sonalite, our first company, after about a year of doing it, it was no question we were going to go back at it, and that then led to Amplitude, which is now 13 years into the business and incredibly successful.
What did you know? What did you know, or when did you know that you should basically just stick it out? When you should stay there, right? Trying to figure out what the impetus was to say, hey, this is working so far. Everybody's really enjoying it. Let's keep at it, right?
I think so. Let me go through a few points in that journey, John. So the first was the decision to shut down Sonalite and start Amplitude. We had spent about a year on that problem, and we were convinced that if we kept going, we probably could have had some okay success. We had a few 100,000 downloads. Someone was using the application, but the retention characteristics were very poor. And we knew that it wasn't going to be a big breakout business. And so we said, all right, let's go back to the drawing board. It's time to move on from this particular idea. Let's go back to the drawing board and work on something else. And that was what led to the inspiration for Amplitude, because it was clear we had built our own analytics as part of starting Sonalite. And it was clear to us that was how you should do it. You should understand in detail what customers are doing on your application through data and leverage that to make a great product experience. And we showed what we had built to a bunch of other companies, and they were all very interested in, a lot of them were very interested in using it. And we're like, all right, there's something here. Let's go take a stab at this. And so one of the biggest things we did was to say, all right, we're going to, let's go talk to a bunch of customers before going and building something. And make sure that we validate the need for this. So we did that. It was great. We talked to 30 different companies before even starting any coding, and kind of we're off to the races. For Amplitude, I think, frankly, we were lucky in that we were in the right time at the right place. There was a growing need. Web was shifting from a marketing channel to the application development. To the value delivery itself. And there needed to be a new set of infrastructure. And so, previous generation of tools like Google Analytics and Adobe didn't work for that. And we knew we could do something better. And so we kind of had that conviction about it. But I remember there was, in the early days of it, like I mentioned that seed round, I remember we pitched one of the premier investors in Silicon Valley at the time. And they had actually brought us all the way to the partner meeting. So it was kind of the final stage before they invest. And so, they had believed in us as entrepreneurs, and they said, they came out of that and they're like, look, we love you guys, but we hate your idea. We think mobile analytics just oversaturated. Lots of companies doing this already. You can't really build a business in analytics. It seems like, remember someone saying, these analytics companies pop up like mushrooms after a rainstorm. We'd love to work with you, but only if you work on something else. And that was a real test for us, because it was like, wow, here's someone who's, legit in the ecosystem saying they do believe in us and our ability to build a great company, but just hate what we're working on. Do we believe in what we're doing enough to continue on it, or should we kind of scrap that and try to work on something else. We ended up deciding to see it through because we saw enough. We knew we could build something better than what was out there, and we saw enough customers, and we knew there'd be enough demand for it. But that was kind of a hard decision. And then we had the luck of, we launched in 2014. I switched over full time from building the product to the sales side, and then the business just started to take off. We grew from 0 to $1 million in ARR in about 9 months. We then had 5 offers for a Series A, and then the whole thing just started compounding. We then grew from in 2015 from 1 million to 4.5, and then from 4.5 to 13, and then from 13 to 31 million, and then from 31 to 53, and just kept continued to grow and grow and grow.
Oh, that's wild. I mean, I think that's always the question. Like you mentioned before, that your first startup, you closed it after a couple months, right? Something like that.
About a year. It was
about a year.
The year of us working on Sonalite.
Yeah. What was the difference when you started the new company? When you started Amplitude?
I think as founders, we were just better suited for B2B in a bunch of ways. And for that particular problem, I think, this is all easy to say in retrospect as well. It's not, hindsight's 2020 on it. But I think we weren't particularly passionate about voice recognition technology. Like, it's not like we were trying to use it a ton ourselves. And we knew, and it was this voice recognition, like a lot of the AI stuff coming out now, it's a probabilistic problem. And so, you're never going to get 100% accuracy on your ability to deliver a good experience. And so, because we didn't have enough appreciation from ourselves as users or from our customers, it's like we were kind of shooting in the dark on that. Whereas in B2B, what's great is customers will tell you what they want. You just need to go talk to them. And if they say, hey, I want this particular feature that allows you to segment a chart in this way, and you build it, they'll pay you money for that. And so that's a much more straightforward feedback loop to get on, because you just build something, you ask them what they want, you build it, they pay you money. That allows you to build some even more stuff and go to more customers. You can build even more stuff. They'll give you even more money. You can build even more stuff, and just the loop keeps going. And so it was frankly much more suited. And then we were also, I think it was just, we were algorithms engineers. Like, my co-founder Curtis was the best algorithms engineer in our graduating class at MIT, and my other co-founder Jeffrey is like twice as good as him. And so we building large scale distributed systems was something we knew how to do, and we knew we could build a better mousetrap in that area. And so then it was just about, okay, how do you make sure the rest of the business ends up becoming successful?
Interesting. What's next for you guys?
So much stuff. I mean, we're in the early days of our market. We're a $300 million business today, but we're setting ourselves up to grow towards $1 billion. So what we've done is, since scaling the business, we've gone beyond analytics to start to take action. So we've added a whole bunch of other things, from some of the things you mentioned, experimentation that allows you to run A/B tests, to session replay, which allows you to see qualitative data, to guides and surveys, which allow you to do interventions. And so now it's about, okay, how do we set ourselves up to win this new digital analytics category that's coming in, so that we end up, we have this early lead in analytics. We're the only company in the space that's public. How do we take that lead and compound it so that we go from just the leader in the space to the category player who's dominant in it? And so that's what we're focused on now at Amplitude, which is, how do we convince a lot of larger companies and enterprises that they need this software to make their products great. I was actually just at a meeting with one of our customers, eBay, yesterday, who's very excited about what we do, but we're only doing kind of a fraction of what we can for them. They have something like 1,000 product managers, and about 200 of those product managers are currently using us. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we get the other 800 onto Amplitude.
Okay, very cool. All right, so where can people check out what you're working on?
So you could go to our website, amplitude.com, or you can follow me on X at my name, Spenser Skates. Yeah, we share a lot about what we're working on and we're building. And I also, frankly, talk a lot about lessons from the journey of founding a company and what I've picked up along the way. And so Yeah, I spend a lot of time thinking about this topic. Honestly, I look back on the Amplitude journey and I think about, okay, what it is it that differentiated us? And it really was just this idea that we're not going to quit the business more than anything else. It's not like we were particularly smarter, particularly better product builders than anyone else out there. It was that, hey, we're not going to stop with, we're going to keep going at this no matter how long it takes.
Okay, very cool. Spenser, thank you for joining us. It's been pretty interesting.
Of course, John, thank you.
All right. This has been Keep Going, podcast about success and failure. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. Remember, Keep Going is entirely listener supported. If you're listening to this, please head over to keepgoingpod.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast for as little as $5 a month. This is a labor of love, and every little bit helps. Thanks for listening.